Yo, what's good guys? Confess CS back again with another video, and today we're going very deep. So before we begin, quick disclaimer, this video is based on public information, news reporting, consumer protection documents, and my own analysis and opinion. This is not financial advice, not investment advice, and nothing here claims to be representing Valve's internal decisions. I have no idea what they're up to actually. This is purely for education and entertainment. Today we are exploring why Counter-Strike might be slowly moving toward a future where new cases no longer drop randomly and instead become Armory Pass exclusive, just like Fever Case, or Gallery Case as it was. And yes, the EU votes, especially the ones from 2023, in my opinion, are a big part of that story. So let's break down exactly why I'm thinking this. Now, before we dive too deep here, I just want to mention that you can still enter in this week's giveaway, which is a diecast AK charm. And you just have to comment, like, and subscribe. It's very appreciated. And yeah, let's go right into it. So let's go for the first section here. The drop pool is not what it used to be. So for years, Counter-Strike was simple. You just played the game. You got random cases. If you go way back in time, it was basically per week or level ups. There were usually 5 prime cases, and they all had similar drop weights. Well, I'm kind of talking in the past here, but 2 months ago it was still the same. But with the terminal, it has changed a lot. So that random drop system was basically free loot boxes built into normal gameplay. Now in CS2, that's changing dramatically. The current prime drop pool looks roughly like this. 40% of all drops are Genesis terminals, and 15% of the other cases that are dropping actively have they're 15% each. So there's also the red drop pool, of course, which is 1% of all cases. So yeah. In other words, now the Genesis terminal now drops more often than any single case, and almost as often as all cases combined. Random case drops are no longer the center of the system here. That alone is a huge signal. So the Genesis terminal is not just another container. It has no knives, it has no gloves, it has no ultra rare jackpot. It uses structured rolls with points. It lets you choose what you buy in the shop, because you can just roll for the skin you want. And you can also basically just play the game and earn those sealed Genesis terminals. And you also get XP for them. So even if you don't buy anything, you still get XP for just seeing the skin, basically. So it's basically a controlled reward engine. It's predictable, it is transparent, it's easy to explain to regulators, and it's much less like classic loot boxes. And when you see that this thing alone has the highest drop weight in the whole care package system, it's hard to call that an accident, in my opinion. So Valve seems to clearly be steering the players toward deterministic, regulation-friendly systems and away from pure RNG case drops, which have multi-layer RNG. But the biggest turning point is not just in-game, it's what happened in the European Parliament. Now, for context. Before 2023, the EU had already passed resolutions about kids online and video games and digital safety, but they were mostly soft, focusing on age ratings, violence, and general protection. Then January 2023 happened. The European Parliament adopted a resolution called Consumer Protection in Online Video Games. So you have the source here as well. So this was the first time the Parliament directly went after paid loot boxes, randomized in-game purchases, hidden probabilities, manipulative in-game monetization, virtual currencies that also hide real costs. So they urged the European Commission to analyze loot boxes across the EU. That was the first step. Consider restricting or disabling them by default. We've seen in some countries that they are banned already. And even explore bans for minors if necessary. And that resolution didn't instantly outlaw loot boxes, but it triggered a whole chain of real follow-up actions. So the work began on the Digital Fairness Act, which is like a very, very, very insanely talked about topic in the EU. And it's aiming to just regulate these dark patterns and basically manipulative microtransactions more strictly here. So from 2023 onwards, loot boxes stopped being just a concern and became, or it seems to be like a regulated target here. Now, that's the background. Now, fast forward to late 2025, or to be honest, like to exactly 1 week ago, and things get even more direct here. So the EU basically adopted another major resolution, and this time on some more things even, in specific social media, video sharing platforms, and AI companions. But we're not going to focus on it. But it demanded that the EU ban gambling like mechanics such as loot boxes in games accessible to minors, obviously. And this time, the parliament isn't speaking into vacuum. They're speaking into a landscape that already contains the Digital Services Act and the upcoming Digital Fairness Act. So the 2025 vote is basically Parliament saying you have the legal tools, use them, and if they're not enough, add more. For games like CS2, which have loot box style cases and are accessible to teenagers, this is a huge deal in my opinion. So yeah, where's Valve going with this? The king of microtransactions, basically. So now let's put this next to Valve's behavior and analyze that a little bit. So the old model, if we are talking about it, you had random weekly case drops, minors get loot boxes just by playing and like getting the temptation maybe of opening them, random case type and random skin outcome, multi-layer RNG, and this seems to be exactly what the EU wants to restrict here. Now, we like this is Valve in the end. So what they are doing already preemptively basically, they added the Genesis terminal, which has a dominant drop weight, no jackpot items, structured low RNG system, and it's very defensible in countries with loot box restrictions, in my opinion. So, um, another very important thing I would like to add here is that basically my speculation here. Since they have already shown, if we trust all the sources and we say, okay, the Genesis terminal actually has 40% drop rate, there's no, like, I don't think Valve has ever stated it. We have to kind of think about it, what happens in the future here. I personally think that the era of random case drops, or like, let's say, if they get actually banned, it would be kind of crucial. But then, of course, like they would probably remove them entirely. But they are probably like kind of shifting it in a way that most of the drops are going to be terminals, if not all. Now, also another very interesting thing is the Armory Pass, which is basically the stars you can use for cases or collections or anything. So it has one clear upfront purchase for the pass. The stars are capped per pass as well. You choose what to spend the stars on, for example, the fever case in this case. It has no random drop of the case itself and no random star reward. Only the final opening, if you decide to go for the fever case, is a key with RNG involved. And the fever case is not in the random drop pool, so it does not come as a random weekly drop. It is pass gated and choice based, and minors can't just get a fever loot box by playing. They have to intentionally buy the pass and spend stars. And also, very important to note here, it's also 70 cents basically created for Valve and revenue. It makes kind of sense, like with the financial side of it. It's like 100 times better for them if someone pays for the case with 70 cents instead of just getting it dropped and selling it on the Steam community market, which then they take a share of. If we look at the other active dropping cases, they probably take like, well, if we look at the Dreams and Nightmares case, it's like 15 cents, I get, or a little bit more, 20 cents in tax revenue when they are being sold through the Steam market, which is also, of course, a huge driver. But you know what I'm kind of pointing out here. So when you line this up, all of the things I stated here, with the 2023 resolution and the 2025 resolution that explicitly calls to ban loot boxes in games accessible to minors, and this is not a new thing, but it has seen strong resonance. So yeah, this seems to be kind of at least the direction, of course, we are heading in. But as I said, I don't really know if like loot boxes are actually being banned across the entire EU. If that happened, well, that's another entirely different story. So Valve Designs is starting to shift and looking less like random creativity and more like legal and economic strategy. They're moving the CS economy from random loot boxes dropping on everyone toward controlled pass-gated shop-based system with fewer random layers. And that seems to be exactly what regulators are pushing for and have been pushing for a long time. Now, the theory here, fewer random case drops and more pass-exclusive cases is my opinion. We're going to see very likely. So here's the theory that, in my view, is very realistic. Most future cases in CS2 will not be random drops. They will be Armory Pass exclusive or shop exclusive containers. Why? Well, it avoids handling loot boxes to miners as random gameplay rewards, which then they can, as I said, they might get tempted and open them. It keeps the most legally sensitive mechanics behind opt-in, adult style purchase flows. It reduces multi-layer RNG, which policymakers absolutely hate. It gives Valve controlled, predictable revenue through passes, and it lets Valve tightly manage case supply and hype cycles. It basically also is future-proof against the stricter EU rules on loot boxes and addictive design, at least I think. And we are already seeing the building blocks here. Terminal dominating drop pool, random case drops becoming less central, fever cases as the first major pass only case, or the gallery case, but yeah, you get the point. Like there's still only the fever case right now, which is obtainable. And the EU is telling the Commission to ban loot boxes in games accessible to minors. So, where do we go from it? Honestly, I don't know. But the easiest part, of course, would Valve adding basically either age restriction for their game, or of course, like, well, which is very unlikely, but removing the cases in the EU, which would suck, as I live in the EU, or banning them at least. But I don't think cases are going to disappear completely. But the era where every big new case just goes into the random drop pool, that might be ending. Instead, we're likely heading toward a future where terminals are your default drops, passes and shops are your main way to get new cases, and random loot box access to or for minors is heavily restricted by design, partly because the EU is forcing everyone into that direction. Now, yeah, that was kind of a lot, but let me know what you think about it in the comments, and do you think it's good for the game or is it bad? And are random case drops something that you will actually miss? Because I will absolutely miss it. Now, if this helped you understand what's going on in the EU and behind the scenes a little bit, as I said, I'm not like someone who was enlightened or anything. I just read myself into it and make my mind off of it, up on it. So drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Have a nice day.